Dictation 1. Ready? In the relations between states, as in the relations of groups within a single state, what is to be desired is independence for each as regards internal affairs, and law rather than private force as regards external affairs. But as regards groups within a state, it is internal independence that must be emphasized, since that is what is lacking. Subjection to law has been secured on the whole since the end of the Middle Ages. In the relations between states, on the contrary, it is law and a central government that are lacking, since independence exists for external as for internal affairs. The stage we have reached in the affairs of Europe corresponds to the stage reached in our internal affairs during the Wars of the Roses, when turbulent barons frustrated the attempt to make them keep the king's peace. Thus, although the goal is the same in the two cases, the steps to be taken in order to achieve it are quite different. There can be no good international system until the boundaries of states coincide as nearly as possible with the boundaries of nations. A German will tell you that the Russian Poles are a nation, but as for the Prussian Poles, they of course are part of Prussia. Professors can always be hired to prove by arguments of race or language or history that a group about which there is a dispute is or is not a nation, as may be desired by those whom the professors serve. If we are to avoid all these controversies, we must first of all endeavor to find some definition of a nation. A nation is not to be defined by affinities of language or a common historical origin, though these things often help to produce a nation. Switzerland is a nation despite diversities of race, religion, and language. England and Scotland now form one nation, though they did not do so at the time of the Civil War. This is shown by Cromwell's saying, in the height of the conflict, that he would rather be subject to the domain of the Royalists than to that of the Scotch. Great Britain was one state before it was one nation. On the other hand, Germany was one nation before it was one state. What constitutes a nation is a sentiment and an instinct. A sentiment of similarity and an instinct of belonging to the same group or herd. The instinct is an extension of the instinct which constitutes a flock of sheep or any other group of gregarious animals. The sentiment which goes with this is like a milder and more extended form of family feelings. When we return to England after being on the continent, we feel something friendly in the familiar ways, and it is easy to believe that Englishmen on the whole are virtuous, while many foreigners are full of designing wickedness. Such feelings make it easy to organize a nation into a state. It is not difficult, as a rule, to acquiesce in the orders of a national government. We feel that it is our government that its decrees are more or less the same as those which we should have given if we ourselves had been the governors. There is an instinctive and usually unconscious sense of a common purpose animating the numbers of a nation. This becomes especially vivid when there is war or a danger of war. Anyone who at such a time stands out against the orders of his government feels an inner conflict quite different from any that he would feel in standing out against the orders of a foreign government, in whose power he might happen to find himself. If he stands out, he does so with some more or less conscious hope that his government may in time come to think as he does, whereas in standing out against a foreign government, no such hope is necessary. This group instinct, however it may have arisen, is what constitutes a nation, and what makes it important that the boundaries of nations should also be the boundaries of states. National sentiment is a fact and should be taken account of by institutions. When it is ignored, it is intensified and becomes a source of strife. It can only be rendered harmless by being given free play, so long as it is not predatory, but it is not in itself a good or admirable feeling. There is nothing rational and nothing desirable in a limitation of sympathy which confines it to a fragment of the human race. Diversities of manners and customs and traditions are, on the whole, a good thing since they enable different nations to produce different types of excellence, but in national feeling, there is always latent or explicit an element of hostility to foreigners. National feeling as we knew it could not exist in a nation which was wholly free from external pressure of a hostile kind, and group feeling produces a limited and often harmful kind of morality. Men come to identify the good with what serves the interest of their own group, and the bad with what works against those interests, even if it should not happen to be in the interest of mankind as a whole. This group morality is very much in evidence during war and is taken for granted in men's ordinary thought. Almost all Englishmen consider the defeat of Germany desirable for the good of the world, yet, nevertheless, most of them honor a German for fighting for his country, because it has not occurred to them that his actions ought to be guided by a morality higher than that of the group. A man does right, as a rule, to have his thoughts more occupied with the interest of his own nation than with those of others, because his actions are more likely to affect his own nation. But in time of war and all that matters which are of equal concern to other nations and to his own, a man ought to take account of the universal welfare and not allow his survey to be limited by the interest or supposed interest of his own group or nation. So long as national feeling exists, it is very important that each nation should be self governing as regards its internal affairs. Finished.